kids with this.
Corrado Rustici, thank you so much for being here today. We're doing this remotely. You're in Berlin, I'm in California. And my God, that's such a great song. It's one of the few songs that has over 1 billion plays on Spotify, Grammy Award winner, an incredible guitar part. I'm just so honored to have you here today. For people that don't know Corrado's work, he's obviously a very decorated session guitar player, also a founding member of Cervello, a founding member of Nova, and also a great producer in his own right. So again, just so glad to have you here today, thousands of miles away.
Thank you for inviting me, man. Thank you for setting this up. It's great. I'm having a lot of fun reliving these songs, you know.
Yeah. How many years has it been since you've even played some of these?
40 since back then. You know, I'm very bad at that, or I'm very good, I don't know. But usually when I do stuff, I just don't listen to it anymore. So I'm forced to listen to this one because my wife is a huge fan of these songs. So that was actually kind of a great thing that happened the past few days while I was, you know, dusting off the parts. And, you know, obviously you hear these songs everywhere you go, you know, so it's kind of reminded of, and to have been blessed to be part of a very special situation.
My first question about this song is, you know, I mentioned your background was originally with Cervello and Nova, which are kind of Italian prog bands. How did a young man from Italy rooted in prog end up kind of being this funk guitar player in pop music for Whitney Houston? Like, how did that jump happen? Did you even play funk music before you started playing on all these hit records with Narada Michael Walden?
No, I didn't. And it's all due to Narada, who was very gracious in inviting me. I mean, I was in Los Angeles in 78. And the Nova band was at the end, and I was looking for something else. And I had been playing and working with Narada. He had produced a record of mine, and he played on another Nova album. So we kind of we knew each other well. And he just moved to San Francisco. So he gave me a call. I was in Los Angeles looking for something to do, I guess, you know, like leaving the band. But I had no idea. So he asked me to come up to San Francisco. I went up, and we spent, I remember, a couple of days, just he and I playing drums, guitar, you know, fusioning out, just going nuts, you know. And we both liked it, and we both liked each other. So that was the beginning of the nucleus of the group. But I had no idea what kind of music he was doing. He went from coming from the Mahavishnu and Jeff Beck, moving into the R&B. And he already had success with a song called I Don't Want Nobody Else to Dance With You. And then when he asked me if we want to put a group together, and obviously I was very interested in doing so, I was really kind of lost because I had no idea what this music was about. I came from Europe, you know, and Prague is really grounded in classical music and, you know, folk music from the different countries, European countries. So I kind of knew a little bit from the outside the blues because we all grew up with Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck. And I mean, I did, you know, learning all the Cream songs. So I had an idea of what American music was like, but not really. So kind of like Narada gave me like a crash course in, in the funk. But I have to say that fortunately, maybe I had it within me. You know, I had it because he let me play whatever I wanted. And what came out are these parts that, you know, then I realized, I mean, I have to say, I studied for a few months, like Earth, Wind and Fire and, you know, Rufus and Shaka Khan and those great things. And I kind of like made myself familiar with how that guitar, the role of playing in R&B was, which I had no idea about. So I found a way with delays and sounds, because I've always been like a nut, with sounds. Like I'm kind of like a geek in that respect, to find a way that was a little bit different. And I found a way of, through the help of Narada, to find my way into this big thing that was moving on.
Can you recall the first really like big hit song that you ever did with Narada?
There was I Should Have Loved You with him. And that was very influenced by Chic, that was the disco
Nile
days.
Rodgers.
Yeah, Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I could understand that. It was, in a way, it was a big shock for me culturally, also playing live with Narada, because I was used to just playing fast and just going nuts, odd meter stuff. And then just going back to very simple, elemental, and foundationally important, the role of the guitar in rhythm and blues was, which I didn't know, which is basically the guitar is like a rhythm, a percussive instrument, like tuned cowbells or something. So learning that and just going back to basics, how learning the rhythm and how I could find things in there that were complementary of what the funk was happening. That was something that I understood pretty easily and fast. But then, I grew up into it, basically, through Narada's beating up on me.
What was he like in a session? Like when you're doing a session like this Whitney Houston one and I Want to Dance with Somebody, what was that like?
Okay, so Narada was just coming out. First of all, Narada is a great musician. He's not just a drummer or producer. I mean, that's why he was able to create these things. He had some really strong basis, musical foundations upon which he could build all that he built. So he was, and he's a very fiery person. He has a big personality. So he kind of like took over all of us. It was me, Frank Martin, and Randy Jackson on bass, and Mark Russo on saxophone. He kind of like took us under his wings, which are like, they were like newly sprouted wings. I mean, he was like, he really didn't know, but he was so eager, and he was such a talented musician that he picked it up really quickly. And he put us in this room and kind of like beat us into submission, because after the first couple of records where he was playing drums, the Lindrum machine came out, and he was like a lion tamer, in the studio with all of us playing live, all of us big personalities, but playing like for sometimes 8 hours straight on the same song. And it was like, reels, okay, another reel. And like I told you probably before, my hands were bleeding on my strings because I was like picking and picking for so long until the band sounded great, and there were very little overdubs, and maybe some fixes maybe here and there, because obviously you had to wait for the moment when everybody played it, 90% good, and he was great at conducting, like putting the vibe, and we fed on that and we gave us back, we gave him back whatever it was, especially with Randy. But I remember with Randy, who we became like really tight, like almost like brothers, because we were like, at the end of the day, we're like silly, tired, just punch drunk, silly, from playing too much funk, but Narada, the atmosphere was great because we were all starting. We were all learning this thing. He was coming off this first big hit, which is what he really wanted. But obviously he was coming off the respect that we all had for him, because he was a great musician coming from all the great albums with the Mahavishnu Orchestra. And all of us were coming from that too. So kind of like, it was the perfect storm for all of us, ready to learn, and great vibe.
How old were you when you first started working with him, like on these hits, like like the Whitney Houston stuff? That would have been mid 80s.
23, probably 20, yeah, something like that.
Wow.
I had no idea what I was doing. I knew that I knew that I wanted to do something great, and I was like, actually was illegally in the States, and I couldn't go back to Italy. They would have arrested me because I left Italy. Back then, the army was mandatory, so I left. And so I would have been arrested if I went back to Italy, and I couldn't stay in the States. So it was very interesting time, but I had music and the Narada thing that all of a sudden started happening. So it was like godsend, you know?
Wow. Narda had told me the story of when you were working on these Whitney Houston songs that he would have you and Randy and Walter A like all in the control room, and he would be blasting
Yeah.
the track, and that you would
Yeah.
you wouldn't be in the live room, you would actually be in the control room, and you'd be all
Yeah, all of
DI'd
us.
and just playing it
Yeah.
in there. Like, it's sort of an
Yeah.
unusual way to do it, to have everybody in there.
But it was
pretty
great.
common?
It was like almost like playing live. You know, it was a great vibe. It wasn't like overdubbing or anything like that. It was just and maybe that's why these songs are so strong. You know, there was a lot of humanity in there, like, you know, the mystical thing that happens every once in a while, and with good people, sometimes you get lucky and you get some good stuff going on, you know. And we were ready to record it. Did you go to Tarpan Studios?
I did, yeah. We interviewed him
did
there.
he show you? He made a special riser for me, you know, where you come into the door, because I was on the right side and I was always like standing on one leg, you know. So he made a special riser for me to stand there and play for like 8 hours. So
no, he didn't show us that, but next time we're there, we'll have to have him show us.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Do you remember what gear you used there? Like, it sounds like this was all direct for the guitar. Obviously, there was some compression
this was
used.
pretty much direct. Yeah, this was DI. I had this Navigator guitar, ESP Navigator Strat copy that I put a preamp in it that took it out. It was like a loudness preamp, you know, like you took all the mids out, so you get all the chunky stuff.
Yeah.
It was great. There was really good driving the DI into the board, so it was like not just the DI sound, it's kind of like silly, you know. So I played that, but sometimes also, you know, at that time I was playing like a Mesa Boogie Mark IV, so that's what I was using for solos and stuff, especially on his album, like In the Dance of Life and all of that, when Bob Clearmountain engineered it. But mainly it was, you know, DI, because that's what the sound of those days, that's what you wanted the guitar to do. You know, it didn't need to be thick or anything. It was like in between things, you know?
Yeah.
And because of the greatest teaching that then I applied to later in my life with production, you know, that I took all this knowledge that I acquired in my PhD with Narada, was that when we started using drum machines, to not make them sound really stiff, all of us, but I mean, we all played live and there was no quantization, there was no beat detective, nothing. So I learned how to just play behind or in front of the beat to give it, like before the transitions into the next section, to give that stuff. That's what I learned. That's what I was doing. That was a great teaching for me, because I had no idea before that. And so that was a great thing.
And was any of that click track, or was that just whatever you guys did?
It was with the Lin drum, you know. So that was
the Lin was your click,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah, he just programmed it, and then it was easy for him to go, okay, let's do one more. And it's like 8 hours, man. I'm not kidding you, man. It was brutal. Wow. But I would do it all over again, because it was great discipline, great teaching.
That's incredible. Well, I want to move on to talking about another song, which is How Will I Know, another Whitney Houston mega hit. But before I do, I want to talk about one of the sponsors of our show that makes the entire show possible, which is our friends over at MOISES AI. And it is an AI company that we use in order to create the tracks that we're using today. The multi-tracks for a lot of these classics like Whitney Houston, they don't exist regularly to the public, but to be able to present them in an educational fashion as we are today, we need to be able to isolate the guitar so that Corrado can replace his guitar part and perform it again. So they are instrumental in making that happen. And if you're interested in checking this out as somebody watching this, there is a QR code that will be here on screen that you can check it out yourself. And it is an amazing tool, not only for being able to extract tracks, learn your parts if you're playing, you know, a cover song of one of these Whitney Houston tunes, But also, it's really great for being able to transpose pitch. Sometimes a lot of these songs are not in A440, and so we'll correct them to make it a little bit easier on Corrado for not having to retune for every single song. So a really great piece of software. And again, we couldn't do what we do without it. So thank you to our friends over at MOISES AI, and you can again check it out scanning the QR code in the corner. So how will I know? This is now going backwards a few years. And this was kind of the first, I think, big hit that Narada worked on with Whitney Houston. What do you remember about this song and recording it? I can think of one thing that's really odd about it is that it's one of the few hits that I'm aware of that modulates down as it ends. What do you remember about it?
I remember that we were, I think we were at the Automat. We were cutting songs for Aretha, or the Wizumin Who album. So we were in that vibe, like really dirty. I was trying, hey, Aretha, like trying to get into the persona and stuff like that. And then this stuff came up. This song came up, and I think Narada could explain the story better, or maybe has explained it to you how it happened. He squeezed this song like on a day. We took a break from Aretha, and we had one day to do it, basically. And I remember actually, it kind of it was kind of the same vibe, because if you think about it, like who's mean who, it's kind of like how will I know? Who's mean who? How will I know? So it was that song kind of like breathes a little bit of the vibe that we were in for that album, and the kind of instrumentation and the parts. So it was kind of easy to do, and we learned the song really quickly. I think Frank Martin on keyboard and Randy on bass, and Narada and I basically, and I think David Fraser was engineering that album. So the only thing that I remember is that I had a lot of fun playing the bridge, because the bridge is it's got a little bit of the Police thing, and I was using the Rockman. It was kind of interesting for me to do besides just the clean stuff. So that's what I remember about it. But it was a blur, because those days everything happened really fast, one after the other. So. And then, when the album came out, I wasn't really paying attention. Narada wasn't either, maybe, and then the hit happened while we were doing something else, So those kind of days were like really chaos for me. It was just a lot of stuff to deal with,
When you were playing on a song like this, how often would you have a sense whether it was going to be a hit or not?
Well, I was too young then to know, but there's no age. I mean, some people, like Narada and other people, Randy, sometimes myself, there's a little bit of intuition that goes. I never really, and I still don't, fancy myself as a guitar player. I always wanted to be a music maker. I come from the Beatles. I just like songs, and then music and jazz and all that stuff. To me, well, after my adolescent stage of being as fast as I could and then all that stuff, it really lost meaning, to be just a guitar player. So I was looking at music, and I was listening to music just from a song point of view. And whatever touched me, I always let Narada know. I mean, I always told him what I thought was good and was not. Sometimes he didn't want to hear about it. Because Narada, this song sucks, man. He just didn't want to hear about it. But answering your question, sometimes you do. Sometimes, like it happened to me when I started producing, and you find artists. I discovered a lot of the artists that then I went on to produce, and they became big stars. I just can't tell you what it is. You just know. And maybe it's the destiny that you're meeting your destiny, and you recognize it, and you just, oh yeah, that's what we need to go. It's right there. I can't really explain it. But it does happen. I mean, you do know when something is good. I didn't know that this song, How Will I Know, was going to be a hit. As I said, I was too confused, but I kind of knew I Should Have Loved You. I Should Have Loved You was going to be a hit. I knew, I told Nara that it was going to be a hit. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's legitimate. What would you say is, like, as a session guitar player, what was the most valuable lesson that you think you learned from Narada in working with him?
How to play rhythm.
Yeah.
and how to play less.
Yeah.
Less. I mean, even in my solos, I was embarrassed the solos that he made me play because he really wanted the blues thing, which I wasn't really capable of doing yet. I didn't know the blues, you know. Now I found my way of playing the blues, you know. But it like Miles Davis says, it takes a lifetime to sound like yourself. I was so young and I was just learning all this vocabulary that was kind of foreign to me back then. And Narada was a great guy. I'll always be thankful to him for just being patient with me, because he knew that sometimes I would struggle, that to me the stuff sounded really silly and simple, too simple, but it worked. And then it took me a while to understand that and to see it. And going back to what I was saying earlier, to just see it from a higher point of view, not just as a guitar player, because that's kind of boring. You know, you play parts, okay, I'll play this part, but if you can contribute to something that becomes in time something that's more than just the song, that was important to me. And that's what I learned playing with him. And I thank him to this day for just giving me a chance. This Italian guy, young Italian guy that came all over and ended up in San Francisco, you know. He could have used anybody, but he stuck with me, I guess.
You know, he seems to really have a knack, Narda, in being able to sort of pull people from obscurity and really help catapult them. You know, he's done, you know, with his work with you. I think Walter A could say the same thing. Certainly has had a
I
very
remember when
successful
Walter
career.
joined the group. But, you know, maybe that's because that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
Somebody gave him a chance. And
Yeah.
he... and so he passed it on. I'm very grateful. He passed on a big torch, man, coming from Vishnu, which came from Miles Davis,
Yeah.
John Coltrane. That's a big DNA that we all carry, and I'm grateful for that, man. You
Yeah,
can't buy that
Randy
stuff.
Jackson too. I mean, it pretty much, you know, all those guys that he worked with,
Yeah.
you know, and that I want to ask you
Randy,
about that too. Yeah, go for it, please.
No, Randy, I remember when that was when I first moved to San Francisco. So Narada and we were joined by Frank Martin, and we started auditioning a whole bunch of bass players. And some of them we really liked, and some of them are really good friends. And I remember I'm still in touch with them. And then Randy showed up because he was in town playing with Billy Cobham and Tom Coster. I can't remember one of the two. And then Randy came in, and all of a sudden it was like the vibe, you know. It was great. So that was the group. That was it. And then later on, a couple of years forward, Walter started showing up. I can't remember. We were at the Automat and we were borrowing a keyboard of his. I can't remember exactly. But he was, I remember him standing outside the Automat saying, I'd like to play with you guys. You know, it was like really young, you know, like we were all. And so then Narada tried him out. He had a band called The Warriors, and he started playing with him. And then he started joining in. And Walter, to his credit, is a great songwriter. And it was perfect for Narada because he was like me, a nerd on the sounds and stuff. And then at that time I was leaving. So I left, and Walter kind of took over the sound part and the programming part and all that, you know. And he did a great job. And then he went on to have a great career.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's one of kind of I think the signature rhythm sections that maybe a lot of people don't realize how much stuff in combination, especially you and Randy, but also Walter kind of later on were a part of a ton of these really huge hits.
And David Sanchez. I mean, it was a powerful group. I mean, we all went on to do some good things. And and I think that's why those tracks exploded, man. I mean, when you put some good musicians with one intent, you know, we're lucky.
Gear-wise, for How Will I Know, was this a similar thing where it was all DI'd and you guys would have been
I was using the Rockman.
Oh, that's right.
I was using the Rockman. And then I actually I replicated it for
so what are you using? Because we're gonna play it here in just a second. What are you using to recreate, if you could tell us?
So each song is different. I'm using for I Want to Dance with Somebody. I'm using my combination hybrid, like my multi-amp with the THU OverLoud, which actually is like an ADA MP1 sound, because that's what I was using also for that song. And then for How Will I Know, I also use this OverLoud.
The RockGuy.
They call it the RockGuy, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is close enough. But I really wanted to have that grungy kind of darker sound. It's not really ultra pristine like this, like later on. It was pre that. It was still analog, and then David was EQing a lot, and a lot of those 80s reverbs, I remember that was great. So that's what I'm using for that. And then the same for I Knew You Were Waiting. I'm using the multi-amp and the DHU.
Awesome. Well, the guys at OVERLOUND, they've actually offered a really cool thing for our listeners, which is an exclusive discount code if they want to check out the plugin using the coupon code Corrado at checkout. And they're also going to be giving away some of the plugins. And all you need to do in order to enter to win a free plugin is you're going to go over to the Vertex Instagram. You're going to look for any post that we do promoting this video, and anything with us and Corrado, you're going to comment the word Corrado, and that is going to automatically enter you to win. We're going to choose the winners 2 weeks after the video goes live, and you have to make sure you follow Corrado. You have to make sure you follow OVERLOUND, and you have to make sure you follow Vertex. If you fulfilled those things, you're entered to win one of those free plugins. So really cool from OVERLOUND. Shout out to them.
It's a really nice plugin. Yeah, great. Thank you.
And the Rockman was such a classic piece of I'm always shocked when I hear, in these interviews, somebody say, oh yeah, that was a Rockman. Like there was a bunch of use of that in like Bryan Adams hits. Clearly there's some here. It's kind of all over the place. It was such a great workflow tool, you had all your sounds right there.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the smaller stuff that we all loved. You could take it to session to session instead of carrying all your gear, so that was the beginning. And it had a very distinctive sound, and it kind of pliable, and it kind of fit those days. I mean, you can't really use it these days. I mean, you can, but I mean, it was very, very cool. I like the tons of compression that you had in it. So you could, instead of using, if you didn't have outboard gear like we had in the studio, so you can actually go home and have that sound at home. So that was kind of great. It was a great success story for
Tom Schultz was a genius, and I mean Def Leppard is all over that. It's all over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Corrado, I'm wondering if we can cue up How Will I Know, and we can hear you play a little of it.
Sure.
I know
It's such a funky sound, man.
So with something like that, would you just would Narada give you like a chart for that, or would he would just kind of already have it? Like obviously, so the songwriters
he would
bring them the song.
come usually with the bass line. He would come with the bass line because Narada actually has got one of the greatest left hands on the piano. He's the funkiest thing. I mean, better than any keyboard player that I've ever seen. So he would come in just on the piano, show us the changes basically, and then let's go do it. That's how it was basically. And then I will work it out, like playing as he was programming the parts. I would just, and then he'd say, oh, yeah, Rocky, yeah, do that. Yeah, like that. I would just suggest basically. It was free, it was, it was great.
Well, the thing I was noticing, you're playing through this thing, some of the leading into the chorus, you're doing sort of all these like kind of interesting voicings, that I don't know, you might have heard like a Alan Holdsworth or somebody like that, kind of doing some of those more spread voicings. And you didn't really hear that in pop music. And so there's a technicality to the things that you do that kind of pushed people, even though they didn't know they were hearing it. They were hearing somebody who had a much more sophisticated chord vocabulary than
subliminal stuff. Yeah, but that was the joy for me, just to get that stuff out because that was my background, So I was trying to put it in there, and I knew that Narada, coming from that background, would understand it and would not go, "Oh, that's too jazzy," or too, it wouldn't. If it worked, which it does sometimes. Some other times it was too much, or other times, obviously, I played too much in the solos. He would tell me, but other than that, he would let me do it, and it's great. It does add. It's not just basic triads and basically, it helps.
No, I love it, and even in I Want to Dance with Somebody, there are note choices that you're leaving in the chords that are moving us into something. And it's really interesting when I talk with other musician friends that have had to play these songs like for weddings or corporate events where, they'll want to hear some of the, canonized Whitney Houston songs. It's not that straightforward for a pop song, like having to actually learn your parts. Now that I have you playing them, I can go and extract them and really learn them properly. But it's not just like a simple, You're
going to have to pay me a royalty for that, man.
But there's such great parts, Corrado. Like I'm absolutely enamored in just seeing it, for myself is such a treat.
Thank you.
I want to move on to another huge hit song. By the way, every song we've talked about so far has been not only a Grammy winner. I Want to Dance with Somebody, over 1.5 billion plays on Spotify. All of them are 3 and 4 times platinum. How Will I Know sold over 400 million, or has over 400 million plays on Spotify. 3 times platinum has sold multiple millions of records. This next one also a Grammy Award winner. I knew you were waiting for me. The duet between George Michael and Aretha Franklin. I think it's got you, Randy Jackson. Was that Walter A on that one, or was that?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
And what do you remember about this? This is after Who's Zooming Who, right? This is on, I think, 87. So Aretha would be the record. What do you remember about this tune? And you talked about how you used MIDI, or you were using a lot of tones.
Yeah, that's what I remember. So somebody took me to Palo Alto, saying, "Man, you got to come and see this thing in the garage. There's a guy's coming up with some great stuff. He's got a personal computer." I said, "What? Come and see." So I went, and it was in somebody's basement, and he had the Mac Plus with the software, floppy disks, with this thing where I could see for the first time waves, so sound waves. And I saw the future. I said, "Oh my God, that is going to be it." So I just went out, took all the money I had, and went and bought a Mac Plus, the biggest drive that I could find, which was a 20 meg drive. It was this big, and it cost me $2,000 to buy 20 megs. Imagine that.
Yeah, probably in those days they'd be like 10 grand.
Yeah, and so I went and bought this thing, and that the software was Sound Design, which became then DigiDesign. That's where I first saw that. And then somebody also, a dear friend of mine, was still a friend of mine, Paul De Benedictis, worked at this other software company called Opcode. And they made this sequencer, which later was the first sequencer that actually had not only MIDI, but it had one stereo track in sync. And that was the beginning of all opening up, Andromeda, man. It was like in a different galaxy with production, which I used a lot later in my productions. So I remember that for those days now, what I would do, I would show up at all the sessions with my Mac Plus, this heavy drive, and my MIDI guitar made by Charvel. Grover Jackson made it for me because I asked him. Grover became a really good person, not only making great guitars, but he was such a great person, and he gave us a lot of support. And so he made a few guitars for me. And the first one that I asked was, I want to have a MIDI guitar because I want to trigger all the sounds that I have in my head. So he made, and I had an interface that they also made, Charvel interface, which was kind of a funky thing, but at least I could trigger stuff. So I went out and I went to like some kind of trash, where they trash metal and things like that. And I brought like a cassette player and I recorded all these different sounds. Wherever I could go, I would record stuff and sounds and things. And then I would put them all in this big 20 mega drive. And I would carry it to the studio. And one of the things that I sampled also were some wind chimes at my house. So as this is already a Tarpan, I think. Narada will already move the Tarpan. And as we were going to the song, okay, guys, we got a new song. We got to do this is the song. And as he was doing that, I was setting up. I usually would come up with all these crazy sounds, and he would tell, "Oh no, Rocky, no, play just the funk, just that kind of stuff." But this time, for whatever reason, I just started playing a loop of this sample of my wind chimes. And he loved it. So he put it at the beginning of the song.
Right.
And that was my first time I could finally put my MIDI guitar onto a record. Then I used it in different ways, but very like subliminal, like it would double the guitar for other parts or like stuff like that. It wasn't like predominant, like the beginning of I Knew You Were Waiting. So that's what I remember about that song. And then the rest of the song is pretty much what we used to do. Like he would do, this is the changes. Okay, you guys, I'll double him, I'll play it. That's how it happened, basically.
Yeah, it's crazy. I always figured it was like some sort of sequencer or something like that was in the beginning. I didn't think that it was, when you had told me that it was a guitar that you had sampled wind chimes and then you used the MIDI guitar to trigger these sounds, and that's what got printed onto that intro. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And that MIDI guitar too is credited on the Starship song, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, which you also played on. We're not going to talk about it today, but that MIDI guitar shows up in a lot of credits as Charvel MIDI guitar.
Yeah, because, I really was like I am. I'm not really stuck on the guitar the way that it's been talked about it for the last 70, 80 years. I love it. It's a great instrument. It could be used in a classical way, like with Marshalls and all those things. But I always felt like it was just a tool that you could use. And it's my favorite tool. It's where I'm a little better off than keyboards. So it's my preferred tool. But I don't see it. Like, I don't see myself as a guitar player. I don't see it as having one sound. I did a whole album 11 years ago where I just used the guitar to create all the sounds, including drums. And that taught me a lot about what the guitar can do as far as sounds. It took me a while to make the guitar sound like cymbals, but I did it. And so the MIDI for me was the beginning of seeing the guitar roll in different voices. Although, technology now is beginning to be good enough for guitar players to use it. But back then it was really rudimental. I mean, it would double triggering and just bad notes all the time. So you had to really control it. I even did a whole band based on MIDI guitar, bass, drums, and singer. And I can only tell you that when we played live, it was like a bunch of pitch to voltage stuff. It was really something else. But so I started using it more and more because I wanted to have more colors. I wanted to have more. I was tired of just being, the same sounds. And you can only do so much with chorus and amps, and it's one sound, right? It's great and it's its proper place. But if you want to color it differently, you don't have to be black and white all the time. You could use magenta, you could use red. So that's what intrigued me about that. And I used it a lot because that's the only way I could use it then to either fatten up the sound or pitching the chords, like adding fifths, or to make the chording richer. I mean, people would never notice, but it was there. And just like the parts that you talked about earlier, it was just something more, that I could add to the track.
Yeah, well, I think you were a real pioneer in that regard amongst the session musicians. 'Cause I don't think a lot of guitar guys were going that direction yet. Like I think that it took guys a while to sort of catch up to that, or sampling things and using the MIDI triggers. Like that was pretty innovative and not really replicated on anything at that time. So I think that's certainly
It
something that's
seems like
unique
we're
to you.
still there because technology requires studying and requires not being stuck on the instrument, which the instrument itself, I'm still trying to deal with this. It beats you up all the time. So I can see why you spend a long time in trying to master this very unwielding thing, which is not very easy to do. It's not like a keyboard where, the notes are like controlling the tuning and all of that. So I can see why guitar players are resistant, because then you have to learn more technology on top of that. But, like everything else, if you apply yourself to it, you can open up a whole different world. You can have fun with that. And that's when I bought my Syntax, which is here. Maybe later on we can show it. that it's like a whole different beast, man.
Wow.
But it's great.
Well, I want to try to get you to play a little of it if you're willing. But before we do, can you just tell us, Corrado, what is the guitar that you've been using today for all of the tones? What is this guitar? Tell us about it.
So I'm playing this is a prototype that I designed that I'm developing with DV Mark. And it comes from my idea of having a guitar which is basically hollow, smaller body, headless, because as I was touring and things got weirder and weirder traveling, I wanted a light guitar that I could take on the plane with me with no flight cases, like a violin. And this is great. And then my dear friend Alan Olsworth showed us that you could have a great sound with that. So I kind of took his direction, said, maybe I should go that way. And I always wanted to have, and we talk about my pedal also because that's part of the sound. With DV Mark, I always told them, when they came up to me and said, we would like to make a guitar of your own. So I designed the body, and I always wanted to have a guitar that was very expressive. And it goes against really what modern guitars are right now. The pickups are very low output. They're like really PAF, like old, basically. It's hollow inside, and I didn't want the big magnets to stop the strings from vibrating. And that's what takes the dynamics out, it seems to me. Almost also with normal amplifiers, not normal, but modern amplifiers, it seems like there's a lot of distortion. And I've come to not like distortion that much. I actually try to mask it. Guitar players love it, of course, because they want to be expressive. They want to have long notes like violins or saxophones. And me being like a frustrated sax player, I always wanted to have that kind of dynamic and expression, which the guitar, being a percussive instrument, it's really difficult to do unless you do like things like the blues, or where there's a context within which you could play that way, quieter, and more you can hear the breathing of the instrument. But it seems like in modern music, it kind of like went totally flat, like the mixes, everything is pushed, compressed, and I went backwards. So I had them build this thing, which has very low output. It has very two nice pickups. We're still working on it, exactly what pickups we're going to use and what wood we're going to use. And then I use like a little bit of a line driver, MXR, just clean. There's no color on it, and just to push the input a little bit, but just a little bit, especially for the clean stuff, And that's basically what I use. I use two because the other one has a different sound than this. So I'll use that for the last song that we're going to play. And basically that's what I use.
And what do you use for strings? You told me you've got some sort of custom set.
I have La Bella. They make a special set for me, hybrid set, which I enjoy a lot. And
what are the gauges?
It's 9, 12, 16, 20, 30, 40.
Wow.
And it's interesting, but it's very balanced. And it's good because these days I play mostly legato, but hybrid I still pick, but not like I used to. I used to pick everything, coming from the McLaughlin school. He was my hero, by the way, John. When I was 16, I was so in love with John's playing and his music and the great genius that he is. So I used to pick everything, like the Shakti style. All that stuff. I love that. But with the new strings, that's harder to do because obviously they flap more. So yeah, that's a big challenge to do that. So I found that this hybrid set gives me both. I get do a lot of legato and I can also do some picking, when I need to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they make amazing stuff, and actually, they are offering our listeners 20% off their HRS string line. So all they need to do, if they're interested, they can head over to the website. I'll list that below and in the description. They use the coupon code Corrado at checkout. They get 20% off any of the HRS strings. So thank you to Labella for supporting what we're doing with Corrado. And,
thank you, Richard Cock, a great company, by the way. They are really one of the few companies that, as big as they are, they really love to support musicians, and they do product that's really. I mean, I'm not saying this because that's why I went to them to see if I could actually buy some of their strings. And they're great strings.
Yeah, and still a family-owned company. I think a lot of the folks that are in sort of the the administrative levels are all still family members of
Richard Coco, great person and his family. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, Corrado, if we can get into. I knew you were waiting for me. I know you don't have the MIDI guitar now, so we'll have to go without the wind chimes.
We'll wing it, man. We'll do it like normal. Also, that song, as you probably can tell, I think I doubled the choruses, so it's like a bigger
probably
sound
the opening
than
too. It sounds like it's a pretty thick rhythm.
I don't remember if I did, but it's that's also mixing in your head.
Sure.
David Fisher probably did his thing, but I think the choruses especially. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and try and do that.
Awesome.
Went through
that song, Corrado. Do you think that was your Mesa Boogie that you were using for kind of the thicker
No,
sounds?
that was later. The Mesa Boogie I basically put away after Narada's Dance of Life album.
Okay.
I think I was using a PV. At that time, Randy and I, struggling musicians, we were looking for endorsements, and PV was, I don't know, I think I forgot the name
Is it a
of the
Mace?
person.
Is it a PV Mace? That was kind of like their...
It was like a box. It was like a combo, a small little thing that they want us to use because they were making that and they want us to... It's before they made the ones for Van Halen and all that. It was like really simple amps, but I used it for the crunch, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been like a
Rockman.
classic 30. I mean, that was kind of like their...
Yeah. It was blue, black. I remember they only had like it copied a little bit of the Marshall,
Okay.
like with the gain structure, but it didn't sound like a Marshall. But I used it because it was free, so that was good. And then it was manageable. I remember that Tarpan, they made like a little room for me to put my little amp in there so that I could mic it. And it was like one, I think it was, just one speaker.
Just a 112?
4 or 2, which, something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a 10 for sure. It was a 12, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then what guitar do you think you would have been using back then for that song? Would that have been your ESP
I was using,
or your Charvel?
No, I was using the soloist, the Charvel.
Okay, but that part wasn't MIDI though, right? You weren't using the MIDI guitar for that part.
No, that's just pure guitar, yeah. That was, and I used the soloist, I guess it was the model that they made, which had a humbucker on the bridge and then 2 single coils. That's the one that I use for a lot of these. When I need a fatter sound, I would go to that, and for the MIDI, of course.
Yeah, so probably you think in the intro section that would have been humbucker, but then when some of the fills, do you think that would have been singles?
I think I stayed with a humbucker
the whole time. Okay,
but I'm not sure because sometimes I don't want to say something silly. Sometimes we would punch in, like if I didn't like the sound, and it might have well been that, okay, let's get a clean sound just for the verse or whatever. Probably we could have done that.
Yeah. With these songs like this or any of the Whitney Houston songs, I think Narada had said that typically you guys would build out the track completely and then he would take it to them and then do the vocal sessions separately. They usually weren't done with you guys there. Yeah. Would this all be to a scratch vocal that somebody else would sing, or were there no vocals at all?
Sometimes there were no vocals at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes he just sang us the melody as he was showing us the song, and we memorize it, and we kind of like, and he would, he would just go crazy. Sometimes he had a mic that he was singing, because Narada has to be, Narada, so come on, guys, he'd be singing while we were playing, just as a guide, basically, just to know where the parts were, or he would just scream verse, and just, and we kind of remember what the melody was like, or chorus, that's how it was. Sometimes I think he would do scratch vocals with Kitty.
Yeah, Kitty Beethoven or Jennifer Hall, I think was another one that he used a lot.
Yeah, before he went, after we done the tracks, then he would have them come in and just do some scratch vocals, guide vocals to send to whoever singer was.
Yeah, and I think that they would also do all the background vocals too. I think that they're both listed as all the background vocalists for most of those songs from Whitney Houston.
Yeah,
and
great singers.
Yeah, I told Narada that Jennifer Hall was my vocal coach when I was in high school.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got to, she was the one that worked with me.
That shows your age, man, not mine.
No, this would have been like 2003 probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, amazing song. Absolutely love everything about it and love that part. So great again to kind of see these, get to relive them through kind of your sort of retelling
I'll tell you,
them.
man. I love this. This has given me the opportunity to relive these things, because I've forgotten about them. And it's been a pleasure. I mean, thank you for allowing me to do this. This is great. I used to play this way. Okay. That kind of, it was kind of fun.
Yeah, well, we have one more song that we're going to talk about today, which is going all the way back to the record that you first worked on with Narada, or I should say the first big commercial record, which was The Dance of Life. And this was with Narada and Bob Clearmountain as a producer, and got some really great songs, done some great funk songs. It's got some great stuff that you've actually reinterpreted as an artist, and that you actually told me you performed this song, "The Dance of Life," with your band when you're out and doing gigs. And so I'd love to hear though. And this was 79 or 80 that this came out.
79.
79.
79.
So Corrado, could you talk me through what it was like working with Narada on The Dance of Life?
So the album came about as I was reminiscing on this because Narada needed a hit. I needed an R&B hit. So he worked really hard, and we worked really hard as a band. We actually came off. He had this first minor hit with "I Don't Want Nobody Else to Dance With You." So we did a whole tour of 3 months. We had Bobby Vega on bass, Frank Martin on keyboards, Mark Russo, myself, Narada, and David Grover on trumpet. We called them the See America Horns because we drove everywhere for 3 months, just all the South and everywhere. It's like unbelievable. So we played everywhere. We played with Rufus. We played. So that was a great, actually for me, also great learning experience, because as I would play on stage, sometimes I would just go off and, okay, it's my solo time. I just play, and it would just go. Whew, people didn't react at all. And then, Randy would come off, put these big glasses, like Disney glasses, and go, pa, 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 and people would go, ah. I said, what is going on here, man? Anyway, so I learned that maybe less is more, and it was a great, and that worked for me. Also watching Rufus every night play, and also the Brothers Johnson we toured with. So we came off that tour. That was a great time to just solidify the funk, basically, as a group. And then Narada started writing, and we wrote together a couple of things, and we came up with all the songs. And we went into the studio and we cut it. And that's where we cut I Should Have Loved You, Tonight I'm Alright, all those hits, basically. And then I think the last song that we cut was this song, which Narada, thank God, always wanted to put in one of his albums, which was a fusion song or somehow instrumental. So he came up with this one called The Dance of Life, which turned out to be actually a great tune. People seem to really like that tune. And we, at the end of the tour, actually, Bobby Vega left. And so we got T.M. Stevens to come and play bass. And he's actually the guy who played bass on the album. And T.M. came up with the funky bass line for I Should Have Loved You. That's all he wrote, man. It was unbelievable. And T.M. was a force of nature. So then this song, we started cutting, and I think it didn't take too long, probably 2 or 3 takes or something. But for whatever reason, it just seems to have touched a lot of people because it's a great tune. And I'm always been a little bit embarrassed about what I played because it was just spur of the moment. There's a lot of stuff going on. But there was a good energy, there, which we all liked. And it was a good outlet for me as a guitar player finally to play a solo unbridled, like whatever came up, not... And that's what we did at Narada, too, stretched out at the end with the drums. So that's how that song came about. And it was, I think, the last song that we cut at Wally Hyder. That's where we're cutting the record. And so, that's what I remember about that. It was at the end of a really worked out material album and all the rehearsals and a lot of recording with, not a lot of recording, but disciplined recording with Bob Clearmountain and Narada.
Yeah, and I understand that Bob is particular about getting the right sounds and stuff like that. What was he like to work with?
I think it was his first or second production, so he was pretty like engineering basically, and Narada was doing all of the artistic direction. He was great because he was, and that's what we loved about him. The sounds were incredible that came out, and for those days, he was coming off of that power station sound, in New York, and bringing that sound, and we all loved that. So, Yeah. So he was very easy
I'm
to
sure as a
work with.
drummer, Narada really loved it.
Yeah.
Because the Power Station drum sound was pretty
Yeah.
iconic.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think he loved playing with Nard, although seemed like he was more focused on engineering than for all of us, it was kind of like happening too fast. We were young and coming up, so we were worried about the guitar, worried about the sounds, and Narda was worried about the song. It was kind of like that sometimes, frantic, but we always found a way to come together when it counted, and we just cut the tune, and that was it,
Yeah. And you guys would, in 79, how old would you have been?
24.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. 79, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, and you've sort of morphed this song to do it for your own purposes. Can you kind of tell me about sort of what we're going to hear, the version we're going to hear today of you playing this?
Well, it's basically the same song, but obviously I've changed as a guitar player, and I don't play like that anymore. All the pentatonic stuff and that I used to play a lot. I've changed, and so I try to find a way with the use of my pedal, actually, the Sophia thing, to make me sing a little bit more, which I couldn't do then. So I have come up with a way of doing it and trying to stretch out and see if I could find, we'll see what happens, when I play it, but see if I could find ways of exploring the guitar over those chords as opposed to just being safe, So
Yeah.
That's the way it's happening. And people seem to really like it live. It's like one of those songs that all over the world. We played in Japan, they love that. We played in Italy, they love that. You played in the States, they love that. So, and I'm very happy to play it, although it's not my tune, but it's part of my history, People remember me for that too, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah. And we're going to be using a real amp this time for the setup. Is that right?
Yeah, we're using a couple of presets that I have for the DV Mark amp and for my pedal. And, I try to be as close as possible to just follow the dynamics of the song, and we mic
and
it.
you're just going to be miking it with
Loudon mics.
With Loudon Audio.
Yeah, fantastic.
Tell us about those.
Oh, I love those mics. I have a whole bunch that was graciously passed on to me by the founder, Brian Loudon. I used these mics for the last, 10 years I've used them. And then they came up with these new mics for the amps that are full rejection. So it's perfect for my studio because it's a small place here and I could turn it up and it doesn't feed, it doesn't get the sound from my speakers into it as much. And also I have a great cuts of EQ, and I love it. And I usually use stereo. I use a combination of the 308 and the 208, one on each speaker. And then I balance the sound for the stereo thing. But tonight I'm just going to go mono with my mic, the 208, which I think it's very nice. And we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, well, they're an incredible company, also California based here, and they have actually also generously offered to do a giveaway of their microphone, and so one lucky winner. Or a lucky winner is going to be winning one of these microphones, and all they need to do in order to enter to win is they need to make sure that they follow Corrado, they follow Loudon Audio, they follow Vertex, and they comment Corrado on any one of our videos that we do on Instagram that is promoting this larger video. And in 2 weeks after that, we'll choose a winner.
Wow.
And they'll get shipped that microphone directly. So a really cool opportunity to get the exact same mics or the exact same brand of mics that Corrado is using. So a shout out to them for supporting us.
Thank you, Loudon Audio. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get that queued up and we'll get to hear a little of it.
Yeah.
Well, Corrado, that was incredible. I think you can definitely hear, like, obviously your influences and your take on that Narada Michael Walden song.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you again, Corrado, for and everything that you've done in influencing the way that we hear pop music. I think certainly just if all you ever had done was I want to dance with somebody and the billions of plays that it's had on Spotify, and that's that's a quantifiable number or that's a quantifiable number in today's terms, but considering all the record sales and MTV and all these other places where we've heard it played, people have heard your guitar playing whether they know it or not. You've been on a ton of Grammy-winning songs, and it's really shaped the way that we've heard pop music, and also your work subsequently as a producer has just had a huge influence on music throughout the world. So I just want to thank you from thousands of miles away. I would be shaking your hand right now if we were in person, just to say thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mason.
I think that it's just so cool to get a chance to relive some of these songs and kind of hear the story from the horse's mouth and get an opportunity to kind of dive in deeper where these stories really haven't been told before, as far as I'm aware, around how these came to be. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mason. Thank you for inviting me. I hope that something good will come out of this.
Yeah. Well, if people want to learn more about what it is that you're up to, Corrado, where should they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, CorradoRustici.com. They also have a Facebook or Instagram. I am not as a social media guy as other people because I don't particularly like it, but I'm there on those two main ones. I don't do TikTok. I don't do other things, but so they can find more about me there. And there'll be some big projects coming up in the next few months, so maybe they'd be interested, including.
Awesome. Well, we'll certainly make sure that we direct people there in the description and have links to all that. And then we'll also be posting a bunch of content of just little excerpts of parts of this interview that will be on TikTok, and we'll collaborate with you on those so that we can get a bunch more traffic, in addition to all of these great sponsors and endorsements of yours that are helping support this video. I think we'll get a lot of attention on it that way. So thank you again, Corrado.
Thank you, Mason.
Again, I can't express my appreciation more for all the things you've done and just how reverent I am of your music and your guitar playing.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Keep doing the great job you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.